Hello, everybody. Good morning, good evening, good night, even some of you. Okay. And my dear friend, Captain Subraniam, made an explanation already about the measures in the port. I can just subscribe and sign it. So in my first slide that now we will show you, I have prepared for you 6 slides. And the first thing when we are thinking about the title of this webinar, that is the new normal for ports. First thing, that's depending on the length of the crisis. I will say even the medical crisis, no, of the coronavirus could be short, could be long. So the new normal will be totally different. I will come back later on to that, and especially because now we don't know yet where the bottom line is. And that's the basic thing. We have to see where the bottom line is, and probably that is related to discovering or trying to find medical solutions for that, also vaccines and all this kind of stuff. And that will allow us to come back to the, let's say, to a previous life or normal life. But in any case, if you put my first slides, please, and the 6 slides that I was preparing, one is the one you were asking now, Anthony, very simple. The decrease of the cargo for this quarter, January, March. As you can see, some of the figures are already with 2 digits. And I have to say that with my colleagues in Europe, with many ports that I usually talk around, we are expecting more or less everybody around 30% more or less of decrease, depending on different type of products that I will come back later, because there are some sectors, they are booming, and I will come to that later on. But here, what you cannot see, I didn't put it, but I mean, I tell you, is the passengers. Passengers is 0. So I mean, all these are decreases, but passenger at that moment, either ferry passengers or container or cruise passengers, unfortunately, is totally 0. It's closed down all terminals for that. So the next slide will show you that I have to make a little introduction here, that the next slide is before coronavirus, what we were thinking about our trends, mega trends, and the role of Europe for that. And then this you have it, the mega trends. I think we have a problem with the slides. Can you put the next one, please?
This one.
Yeah, that is. No? So this slide will show you here what we were. You can see that it is the before coronavirus, because we have the coronavirus here, COVID-19, with a big question mark, and it's several mega trends that we were at home at the port. We are now currently defining our new strategic plan, because we had one, and I was talking to my colleagues before, we had one that from 2015 up to 2020. So we start to create the one from 2021 to 2025, our strategic plan that we used to do every 5 years. So we were already working on that. So you can imagine, and I put you here some of the trends we were discussing, and we had almost everything ready to be published, because we need to have our strategic plan ready sometime in advance that the current one is concluding. So you see here, I put you an example. What we were thinking about the COVID-19. Megatrend group, for instance, environmental and energy. More sustainable energy mix, we were discussing, of course, increase of electric mobility, societal and consumption partners, local for local, servitization, like we say, okay, every day more and more we are buying services instead of goods. Like I will say, if you are subscribing to Netflix instead of buying a CD that before we were doing, or even with the music and things like that. So many of the things, I mean, that's a concept. Macroeconomics and geopolitics, we were thinking strong growth of the emerging markets on the next coming 5 years, lower growth of the advanced economies, evolution of supply chains, global disruptions. We had already written that. We were thinking maybe not in a virus, or yes. We were also thinking about these mega trends, these global disruptions, also cyber attacks, disease, things like that, value chain digitalization. We already talked a bit about, Captain Sobania was already talking a bit about, maritime and ports area, increase on ship side, shipping sector concentration. Only those are examples. So now if we say impact of the COVID on all those, that are samples, examples, not, of course, you can put much more, and there are much many, and we have plenty of pages of that thinking about the trends in the future, but how this will impact the COVID? Question mark. Okay, so the next slide is also before the COVID-19, and allowed me and the other people around the world that that was more or less, we were thinking about that from the European perspective. We said, okay, we are developing, we are thinking how the world, as we are developing this strategic plan for 2021, 2025, and also the 2040 scenarios, we were thinking, what's going to be the role of Europe? We have been seeing the role of Europe in the past decade and also the past decades, I mean, a leading role sometimes, but also now it's a question mark how the European Union and how Europe is going to keep going on this leadership. That leadership, economical and everything, will be declining hands of other areas. So we were thinking about that. And you see here the European development and of course the world development. So we had the world can grow more or less, and we have global stagnation and global growth. And Europe is leading that or just watching how other areas like, for instance, Asia and Africa trade is growing faster and other areas are developing faster. So that was our aim. So to see, so then we could see that this, our position in Europe, how Europe is reacting, the European Commission, the European Parliament, and all these institutes, that here we are, many times now we are under debate. Is really Europe playing the role that should do? Okay, so this is the, so now next slide, please, will come to the future. And I will put you 3 slides now for the future, and then later on I leave it open. Of course, this is just for us, because already my colleague from Portland was saying what internally we do in the port on the short-term things, and I said at the very beginning, I subscribe what he says. We are more or less doing the same about protection, about many medical care of our people, how to handle, I mean, these distances, etc., etc. Now I'm looking a little bit more on an outside scenario. Okay, we protect ourselves, but how we are facing this future and with different scenarios. So that allowed me, if you put if you see that new possible scenarios, you have on the impact on industry. You have here what I said at the very beginning. Is this medical crisis? Let's say it's going to be short or long. So here you have a quick recovery on the left-hand side and down. Quick recovery. So that will be short, of course. Quick recovery. Tourists not afraid. Low unemployment. Few companies closed. But in any of these circumstances. And we say also on the right-hand side, you say seasonal, no recurrent. So I mean that this virus is seasonal. Now with the summer here, especially in our area, that will be decreasing. Early aging, as I said before, new medicines, everything. No mutations. Okay. In any case, 1 year lost. Whatever happened in that on the best case scenario. Short. If we go up, we see bigger recession when this is a slow recovery, panic in tourism, high unemployment, and sectors closed. And I will not go on the right-hand side, as you see. I can go, of course, but we have no seasonal, recurrent mutation of the virus and so on. So we have a very dark area. So I will not come to here because that's something that we have to see depending on how long does it takes. So let's be, in a way, but these are possible scenarios. We can debate later on and you can ask which is our feelings and so. So also we have on this recession and this recovering that can be with a V recovering, an L, a U, a half U, a double B, whatever. Of course, we have seen different crises all over the world in different ways, but myself, I don't remember any like that, no? That is absolutely global. all over, and we're still in there. So as I said at the very beginning, we don't know where the bottom line is to make the real diagnosis. So let me put just this screen, but let's go now for the last two slides. The number 5, that please you can put the next one, is short-term impact on ports. And I put here, and of course, it's just for you to think about and put whatever you like and put more. It's just an idea, not of course all of them. But here we have short impact on ports, less traffic and less income. Well, we saw already the figures. Less income for ports, how we can afford then in the future our investments and so on. More affected sectors, cruise. You know that Barcelona is one of the leading ports in the world on the cruise business. We are handling more than 3 million passengers every year with a big hub as a port of turnaround. So now it's 0. So when that will restart, and then also that comes together as a hub port with the airlines. So we need to start the cruise business together with the airlines bringing the passengers. So yesterday our cruise manager was sitting with our airport, that the decrease of activity of our airport, that is a very big international airport, that it provides us with all passengers arriving to Barcelona for make a cruise to the Met, the decrease was 95%. So there are sectors that are really with a huge effect. The automotive sector, a lot of plants here in Spain were closed and they've been reopening very slow on the last Monday. Container, okay, we can think. Less affected sectors, we have bulk, also food stuff, of course, pharmaceutical stuff, pharmacy, health products, but food, for instance, has been growing at home in the port. Last month, 8% of containers growth in the middle, March. And that's because, this is moving. Also can be done, also e-commerce can be also progressing. So we have all these sectors that they are really growing. Financial quick actions from public sector. Less congestion, less emissions, less pollution. That's what we see. Unfortunately created for the COVID, but that's a reality in our cities. And some specific traffics are growing, as I mentioned before. So we have to pay attention on that. Also, we have seen how the oil, the crude oil, not especially, but also the oil, the refined products and so on, now they are kept and waiting for the increase of price. So there are sectors, even they are speculating on that, and they are moving huge quantities and making a certain amount of money. So that's depending on what we are facing. So just before finalizing that on certain sectors that are crucial and more affected, I place you a question. It's, for instance, the low-cost airlines business. Is going to be possible in the future when we have to sit 2 meters from each other, or 1 meter, and the capacity of the planes will be allowed only half of it, half of passengers. So all this model is feasible. These companies can survive with only half amount of passengers, also hotels and things like that. So again, that's depending on the crisis, if it's short or long. And then the last slide, please, is a long-term impact. And I put here some of them. Of course, later on you can ask and we can debate on that. Logistics follows industry and consumption. That for us in the Port of Barcelona is a key thing. We are a hinterland activity port. We have a lot of import-export activities. We have quite a big industrial area, South France, north side of Spain, half of Spain, Italy, all that. We are in the middle of that, so all the logistics flows are related to the consumption areas and the industrial areas. So we have to see what's going to happen with that after we can make that diagnostics, which sectors has been surviving, which ones have been increasing, which ones with a lot of problems. Let's see. Some sectors may suffer a dramatic impact. I already mentioned some of them. Maybe public investment substituting private investment, maybe, but public entities, states will have enough money. We are spending now everything we have. We are with a big debt in the future. Also the port. Energy transition imports may be slow down or stop. Expected developments may be stopped. Look for new non-traditional business. We have to rethink about our role as a port. New business, of course. There are opportunities always coming out, so we will need to adapt ourselves. probably more short sea and less deep sea. Why? Because some of the companies also have delocalization, faraway productions, and they are reconcentrated again, for instance, in Europe or closer or in other areas. That will happen with the textile industry, with companies like Zara, Inditex, Mango, H&M, companies like that. The market will still growing in that direction. The consumption is going to be on the same level as it was before. So a strategic driver for ports: diversification, digitalization, already mentioned, resilience, new business models, sustainability, and a lot of flexibility to adapt ourselves and adapt our infrastructure to the trends in the future, to the new needs of the consumption areas, to the new needs of our industry. So we will need a lot of innovation, flexibility, digitalization, resilience, and diversification. So I leave it here, and later on we can discuss whatever you like. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Santiago. You have given indeed a very, very good and broad overview of all the sectors that may be impacted. Before we go to Ian, could you add maybe 1 or 2 more remarks on the question of the impact of these developments on potentially the shipping industry? The shipping industry will be in trouble here and there, in particular the weaker companies. Do you have any particular views on that?
Well, again, I'm sorry, I will say always the same. We don't have the bottom line. What will be the final effects on that? No, so it's quite difficult to say now what's going to happen when we're still decreasing. We don't see where that will stop, and more or less we will come back to this real, this new normal, what we said at the very beginning. No, what will be the new normal? But yes, I agree with you. There is a lot of problems in that. We have black sailings, we have decrease of different connections between the shipping lines. We see how they are suffering because, I mean, all this has been totally changed by now, and we are going to see a lot of changes as well in the next coming future. Now, for instance, we have a lot of problems, or we can have problems with the full containers that the industry needs, and they were closed, and the consumption areas they need, but they are closed as well. Where to stock all these full containers? They don't have the capacity to be delivered to the consumer or to the industry. So we have also internally stock problems, and we have to work with the shipping lines, how we manage, for instance, as an example, all this situation. So yes, the impact is huge.